Alright, hello everyone, welcome to another Xavier video. Today, I'm going to be doing another tutorial, but this time, we're doing the advanced tutorial, and I know it's been quite a minute since I've done one of these, but hey, I have some things that I have to tell y'all, and if you made it this far before I even begin, consider yourself that you have extremely good skill, because if you're just watching this just because, you don't deserve that title, but if you've actually taken my advice and used it and applied it, and you've been getting good at Dead by Daylight, good for you. And that's why you're watching this. And also, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe and comment. I'm kind of desperate, and you're also kind of telling me that my videos aren't fucking boring. Alright, so, first things first. Your hearing is your best friend. So, what do I mean by that? So, let's say, for example, you're in a 3-gen, and you want to presumably at least get one survivor out of that whole thing. So, theoretically speaking, if you wanted to, let's say, go for Gen A, but all survivors are at Gen B, you would realistically probably just walk up over there without even knowing. Because when a generator is being repaired, it would make a ching 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 like that. If you don't hear any noise from a generator, you don't go to it, simply. Instead, you would automatically leave it. Leave it. Don't go all the way into it, because a generator is also extremely loud. So you don't have to go all the way to a generator to hear what it's doing. Instead, you can just kind of like walk into the front doorway of a building, and you could hear the generator from there. If there's no noise, don't go to it. That's a good one, because it's going to help you out in my next tip. My next tip is 90% of survivors would essentially run the same perk build. I know that is a very hot take to consider, especially considering of how Twitter and where did Twitter even come from? But especially how Dead by Daylight is in shambles because of how a killer's cosmetic looks. This is actually kind of important, so listen to me when I tell you this. So, the hearing part is going to be also important because, take Blood Echo for example. Blood Echo can apply the Hermage and Exhausted effect for about 45 seconds and has a cooldown of 1 minute. Exhausted pretty much makes it to where you can't run perks like Dead Hard, Lethal, or Sprint Burst, or Adrenaline. Those the big four. It's technically the big three, but I'm putting it as the big four. The little four. Perfect. But it's also not even that. It's not even that either, because if you were to have like an exhausted perk, most survivors wouldn't necessarily know what to do, and they'll still try to repair the generators. They'll just have an extremely, and I mean an extremely hard time. So remember that. One of my other tips was tip number 3. You need to also tell yourself sometimes, I don't care. What do I mean by this? When you are getting looped viciously over and over and over again without getting a single hit, for example, take that presumably, you are probably going to get pissed, and you're going to be like, grr, I want to punch my monitor till it's broken. Wapow, wapow, wapow. No, you don't need to do that. Don't do that at all, for one. Too much money spent on your monitor. That's ridiculous. Second thing is, it's that you're not always going to win all of your games. That's literally statistically almost impossible. It's not impossible, but it's hard to do. And it's okay, because if there's struggle, that means you're learning things. But if there is no struggle, there is no progress. That's how I look at it, alright? Because, remember, this is just a game. This isn't like, oh, you're being held at gunpoint. If you don't get all these 4 survivors, then you'll die. No. That's not how this game works at all. I mean, realistically, that's how it would probably work in some way, but even then, that wouldn't work like that. And speaking of which, while I'm talking about looping, number 4 is sometimes you need to also know when and when not to leave certain loops. So, take for example, you're in a chase and you're on a 3-gen, alright? And there is this TTV that is, let's say, looping you for eternity like God. You need to just leave that loop after 45 to 60 seconds. Or even then, if they already start looping, you just leave. Because essentially you won't really lose anything, and you can also probably get another survivor that isn't good at looping. Because tip number 5, if that's the right one, tip number 4, tip number 5, yada yada yada. So yeah, that was tip number 4. Okay, tip number 5. So, here's how most survivors would work. Tip number 5. I'm not repeating myself again. Tip number 5. Most survivors would have 2 survivors that are horrible in chases on gens. And then they'll have 2 other survivors looping the killer. So, essentially, what you want to do is, you want to not chase the survivors. Instead, you need to not quickly necessarily, you just need to know who's good at looping and who's bad at looping. Because those are the first 2 people you necessarily want to target first. Mainly because they won't be really good at gens. And besides, one person's going to have to sacrifice himself either way. Because even if they're not necessarily good at looping, there's something called mind games. And speaking of mind games, tip number 6, mind games can also help you really well. So, you've probably heard the term mind games, but do you actually know how to do them? No, you probably don't. So, in order to do a mind game, if you're in a chase, for example, let's say you are... Okay, look at my mouse real quick. I don't know if you can see it, but take, for example, I'm at this fire, and I am over here. Alright? So, essentially, if I want to get to that... If I want to manipulate my survivor's mind to thinking I'm going to the left when I'm really going to the right, where he's going to jump over to get to that side, you want to quickly dash to the left, essentially, like fake it a little bit. You know how... You probably don't know how, but essentially, you just want to fake it. Let's leave it as that. You want to fake it, go to the left, and then quickly go to the right, and then bum rush them, depending on how far you are from them. Because sometimes, take Nemesis, for example, he has his tail thing, so if your tail, or if your T-Virus tentacle is at a certain level, you can just whip them, and you can hit them, just like that, and you can infect them. Simple. Like, you need to understand, tip number 7, you need to also know, like, what your abilities are and what you're capable of doing in certain situations. So, like I was just talking about, you need to be aware and always know, like, okay, what do I have on the table? What are my cards? What do I have in my deck? Can I play a +4? Can I have a skip, reverse, red 1? What do I got? Like, you need to know, like, what is on the table first before you do anything. And what do I mean by that? It's quite simple. You need to know, like, what is it that I can do first to get it out the way now. You know what I mean? So, essentially, take this guy, for example. If I wanted to start getting early game pressure, what I would do is, first things first, use tip number 1. You would use your hearing as your best friend, and then you would look for each generator. And essentially, if you don't hear any noise, you just keep walking until you hear a generator that is making noise. And by the time you get over there, it's possible that they might get done with the generator, but essentially speaking, you can hit one of them over and over again until one goes down. And then by the time you get done, you would essentially... even then, even if they're not done repairing the generator, they've probably run away by now. So you'll just have that one survivor, and then you could have time to damage it after you finish the chase. So that would be one way to do it. You also need to know, like, what your power is. So, for example, Nemesis is more of a chase-based killer because he can use his zombies to his advantage. So the only downside of zombies are, like, the only downside of zombies is like they just move on their own. That's it. They just move on their own. If you were able to program them, this guy would be on crack and he'd be nerfed by now. But he's mainly more of a chase-based killer. Mainly because of the fact that he has a tentacle and he can use that to counter looping a little bit. Also, take Knight, for example. You could essentially use his Guardia... I'm not reading that, but he can use his guards to kind of bum spawn in a loop, like on a pallet loop, for example. And it would automatically force the survivor out of the loop, because what happens is if the guard catches you in their terror radius, the guard would chase you. So essentially speaking, if you were to chase that and the guard would be chasing with you, you would essentially get a free down without assuming any consequences. That's another thing you want to do. And well, I'm trying to think here. There was one more tip. Oh yeah, right, TTVs. I forgot what tip this was, but I think it was tip number 8. I think, right? 8, 7. I think it was 7 or 8, give or take. Okay, that's not my point. Tip number 7 or 8. You need to be aware of TTVs. You need to take them seriously. So why do I say, wait, hold on, very hard. Oh, disabled. Okay. But my whole point is, why do I want you to take them seriously? Okay, TTVs for one, I'm not saying that they are rude, but most of them are one of the rudest people on this platform. I'll tell you that. Just to leave it short. So for TTVs, there's a lot of things you need to do. Okay, for one, you need to take TTV seriously, any of them, because chances are they are probably P100s. They probably are. They're not actually P100s. You don't know that, but they probably are. And the reason why you must take them seriously is mainly because if you loop them and you do something wrong, they'll always clip you. Always. They'll just make a little short clip, have them in the stream, just like yada yada yada. You just, casually playing Dead by Daylight. When this one right here, ooh, the person just is rude and then just clips you and then bam, puts you on the internet, and then just like that, your skills depleted, then you look like a loser. You don't want that. We don't want that. So whenever you see a TTV, you must always take them seriously. And one last thing before I go, real quick, two last things. One, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe. I'm kind of desperate, and you're helping out small YouTubers like me. Number two, and the last final tip is, sometimes you need to tell yourself, I don't know if I told yourself, I already said I don't care. No, not for that. It's like another tip. But the whole point is your vision's also you're going to be your best friend. Because I'm not necessarily speaking, but unironically, you can use your eyes to help you kind of like see like what is in front of you. I mean, yeah, no shit. But at the same time, you can use your vision to just, look at generators and all this. But you must be wondering, why am I even telling you this? Well, I'm telling you this because almost nobody uses their ears or eyes. They don't do that at all, or even barely in most cases. Even for advanced killers, they don't do it that much. Instead, they just use a perk like Whispers. Because here's the thing about Whispers. Wait, let me go get it. Because here's the thing about Whispers. Whispers is not essentially bad. It's supposed to help you train. It's supposed to train your instinct on where or who is what. It's kind of meant to just, like help you out and just kind of like help you like guide yourself towards places. But at the same time, it would kind of be bad because imagine you find someone in a certain area, but you can't find them. It's kind of pointless. At that point, you might as well just continue on with what you're doing, But, alright, that's kind of the end of this video. And the next thing I'll be talking about in my next video, it's just gonna be like some tips and tricks on what you can do for every killer with the Ani, or not with the Ani, just like tips and tricks you can use, like what things I would use in chase or whatever, like like actual things that you'd actually use. Like for example, take the knight, the thing I was talking about earlier about looping pallets. So you can put in a knight, and then you could easily force someone out of a loop. Like simple stuff like that can really benefit you. But alright, other than that, I've been your host, Xavier.mastergaming. I apologize if I wasn't really able to get all my stuff in, really, or if I wasn't able to tell y'all really the most I really could. It's mainly because I'm a little bit sick and there's just been some stuff going on, but I'm always trying my best, But alright, other than that, I've been your host, Xavier.mastergaming. I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.